right, you're live.
Good morning and welcome to the October 25th Public Safety Meeting. I'm Vice Mayor Shamika Smith and also the Chair of Public Safety. All council members and staff are participating virtually. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. We are streaming live on the Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have the option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801 and entering the code 9477. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801, meeting code 9477. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, you will hear for more options, press *3. Pressing *3 will allow callers to continue to listen live and join the speaker queue. Public comment will be heard at the beginning and end of public safety meeting. Callers may comment only once during the general public comment sessions, either the beginning or the end of the public comment period, not both. Callers will have the option to speak for 3 minutes. We will be taking public comment after the staff introduction. So if you would like to comment, please join the speaker queue now by pressing *3. If you're watching the meeting through the live stream while listening to the meeting by your phone, please make sure you turn down the volume on your device before speaking. I'll now go through and introduce all the committee members and staff who are participating virtually. Make sure you keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. Council and staff, just say a quick hello. Councilwoman Sandra Kilgore.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Kim Roney.
Hello.
City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Hello.
City Attorney Brad Branham.
Hello, everyone.
Police Chief David Zach.
Good morning.
Deputy Fire Chief Chris Blazinski.
Good morning, everybody.
Fire Division Chief Jeremy Knighton.
Good morning.
And I believe I saw Assistant City Manager Rachel Wood join us as well.
Good morning.
Okay. I think we have a few people in the speaker queue. You will have 3 minutes to comment. Staff will let you know when your 3 minutes is up. Jenna, do we have anyone prepared right now to speak?
We do. I'll bring in the first caller now. And just a reminder, if you're on the line listening to the meeting, if you would like to speak, please press * and then option 3 to join the speaker queue. And caller ending in 2265, your line is open.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, hi. I would like to first and foremost state an overwhelming support to Asheville Police Department. Even with the depleted numbers they have, they are tackling the big crime from what I'm seeing on their website. And most recently, just since the last safety meeting, we had people in nearby woods like screaming and shouting and becoming so intense that I could help and was concerned for the safety of my children while my husband was at work. And who do I call? I call APD, and they were here and they helped and it was resolved. Now, I've had recent conversations with the wealthier population here in Asheville about our depleted police department and the increasing crime happening. And their response is simple: hire private security. But what about us? Those who don't have those means, who can't afford private security. I don't understand how we can have members on our safety committee who claim to care about us while pushing rhetoric that directly harms us. To those against our police department, this is for you. Next time I'm fearful for my family's safety, who am I supposed to call? Should I call Miss Roney, who won't even face the flag and allegiance with the community she was put in a position to serve? No one is asking to worship or bow to the flag, but standing in allegiance to we the people who you are a public servant to is the least you can do. Thank you, Council, and thank you again, APD.
Okay, caller ending in 7555. Your line is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I would just like to state as a registered Democrat, I too very strongly support the APD. I think that we as a community need to come together regardless of our political identity and support the police department. My stance has always been that even amidst criticism, I don't think there are too many of us who would relish sending one of our loved ones off to work every day in a police uniform right now. And I think that it's imperative that as a community, we support them. I think the APD is doing the work they need to do to suss out members of their own internal committee that don't need to be doing that type of work. But I think we need to very strongly support the rest of them who went into this line of work because they wanted to serve and protect the community. And even though some of Ms. Roney's ideas are valid around other points, I do not understand why she doesn't speak up more in support of our police department. And I don't appreciate a negative vote on providing them with the safety equipment they need. Again, as a registered Democrat, I do not understand that and I don't support that position. Thank you, Asheville Police Department. Keep doing the good work. Keep working to improve your department. And to the community, please start supporting our police department as well because they're a vital part of our community. Thank you.
Caller ending in 4192. Your line is open.
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to call in to show my appreciation to APD and for all they have accomplished this month. The community sees all you're doing to help curb crime, and it's not going unnoticed. Over the past year, I've seen so many new community groups grow and form over the topic of safety and showing support to you. It seems those who should have advocated for you a long time ago are finally coming around. Know that there are communities and organizations all over this city supporting you. Thank you for taking steps to recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Week. Thank you for engaging in the drive-through medication drop-off for safe disposal. Thank you for clearing encampments that pose a risk to the community that reside on public property and for doing so in a humane and thoughtful way, always offering notice and always offering resources. Thank you for arresting a drug dealer with more than a dozen firearms, 400 pounds of drugs, and $40,000 in cash. Thank you for engaging schools and students in active shooter preparedness training. Thank you for apprehending a man in East Asheville who was running from you and had several crimes, including assault on a woman. Thank you for removing the drug trafficker who was arrested for trafficking 61 grams of cocaine and so much more. Thank you for removing more guns from the streets, especially since we know there have been multiple gun discharges in West Asheville this month. Thank you for removing a known and wanted rapist off the streets and utilizing the community to help. And thank you for continually engaging the community in fact-based research on crime, including the recent outline of how repeat offenders are responsible for a disproportionately high number of crimes. Of the crimes where an offender is known, 1 out of every 4 offenders has committed multiple offenses since 2020. While repeat offenders comprise only 25% of known offenders, they're responsible for 51% of the crimes where the offender is known. This highlights that the DA is allowing repeat offenders to roam the streets, therefore increasing crime in Asheville from the same people over and over again. You are seen, heard, and appreciated. We won't sit back any longer and allow these meetings to be a slanderous, demeaning experience for those officers who put their lives on the line every day. We support you and we recognize all that you're doing, even amidst opposition from a small select portion of this community. The majority of us are on your side. Don't forget that. And thank you.
Caller ending in 2425. Your line is open.
Good morning, everybody. Number one, I want to make out a special call out to the Asheville Police Department. They're doing an unbelievable job. Chief Zach, keep doing what you're doing. We understand that you have your hands tied behind your back. Just keep doing the best that you can with what you have. Kim Roney, listen, I know that you probably feel attacked by a lot of people out there. I get it. What happened to George Floyd is horrendous, horrible, and it will never be forgotten. And it certainly set off a firestorm. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just can't do that. I think that it's an overreaction. And yeah, if we get a bad cop, we got to prosecute him. We got to put him in jail, just like the cop who did what he did to George Floyd is in jail, I think, for 20 years or more. He should be in jail for life. But we have to be diligent in getting our police department, to the entire council, getting the police department fully staffed and back up to where they need to be to do their job. I have to tell you, Kim, that I think that most of the attack that you're getting is from people who are completely afraid. It is fear that is driving us to come together and to try, and we understand that your intentions may be well directed, but the problem is that if we don't have a fully funded and staffed police department, the average citizen is going to fear for their life. And that is going to motivate the average citizen to want to arm themselves and do any and all kinds of things to protect themselves from the folks that are out there that are willing to do harm. If I was a criminal and I hear the Asheville Police Department is 40% understaffed, I'm coming to Asheville to do crime. And also because I know that if I get caught, I'm going to be turned out by our DA and our magistrates and justice system, which is extremely weak. Stop using Asheville as a lab experiment. I understand that you want to be compassionate to the homeless. I am compassionate to the homeless. Give out a hand a hand up to help them. Offer housing, clothing, medicine, and counsel. But you know what? If a homeless person refuses to come off the street, they can't stay on the street. How bad is that and compassionate is that when we allow a homeless person to stay on the street? That is not being compassionate. We are enabling destructive behaviors for them to stay on the street. No worse than a corner criminal who is dealing drugs. It just doesn't work. So I'm asking the council to reframe a lot of your thinking. But job number one is to get our cops fully
Caller,
funded,
you're
fully
at 3
staffed.
minutes.
Thank you.
And that was our last caller in the queue.
Okay, we'll move on with the agenda. I need a motion to approve the minutes from September.
So moved, Sandra.
This is Kim, second.
I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Kilgore.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The minutes have been approved. We'll move on to Chief Zach. He'll present an update on APD recruitment efforts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Actually, Captain Moore, Brandon Moore, will be presenting. He is leading up our recruitment effort. So I will turn the presentation over to him at this time.
Good morning. So Chief Zach requested that we speak a little bit in depth on the status of the launch of the EPIC recruitment website, as well as we'll hit a little bit on the integrity and compliance unit that we kicked off last year and where that unit currently sits. Next slide. So there exists some significant barriers to recruitment. I think that's known. That was one of the main purposes of us asking for some assistance as far as a new recruitment website to be developed. And that's specifically what EPIC has done for us, this website, and the accompanying social media pages that launched September 2nd. And then the additional advertising that went live started September 19th. So they specifically tailor what we do and how we attack what our effort will be as far as advertising. And those campaigns are built out each month. And so we know ahead of time, and they work with our PIO and our social media strategists to try to develop what should be best and where we go with this. And so that has been done using their organic social content along with ad campaigns to build this specific current content that we put together. So from those platforms, we attack Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, all to increase the awareness around and drive interest towards working for the Asheville Police Department. We hadn't received any specific analytics from Epic. It was a little early on in the campaign, but we did ask that they get us something so we could present to you today. We received what they just gave us as a 20-day snapshot. And so this main campaign, as you see here, had 149,000, just under 150 in reach. And then the impressions was a little over 218,000. And then those YouTube ads that I described earlier also had 63.9 thousand impressions and then 356 clicks. And as you see, just to give you an understanding how they work it, the impressions are the number of times that was displayed, and then those clicks are actually the number of times somebody went to the website. And then more specific data will be provided as we get into the campaign a little bit further, but we will get that and we will share that at that time. Next slide. So in speaking to some of the barriers to recruitment, and we have seen this, we knew this going into our efforts, but across the nation, agencies strongly believe that the public perception of law enforcement limits that interest in the profession and is a sizable barrier to effective recruitment. And as you can see, 78% of these agencies that were polled have difficulty in recruiting qualified candidates. We have 65% say that they have too few candidates. And then I think what also affects us is the 25% report having to reduce and eliminate certain basic services. And we know we've done that here in Asheville. We didn't want to get to that point, but we were forced into that. And a lot of agencies, I think, have reached out to Chief Zach too, from a perspective of how did you do that? And what happened in those instances? And I think that's the lower number. And we hate being in this category, but that's where we currently find ourselves. Some other factors that also associate with low recruitment are generational barriers that we have found in just how we attract this new generation of employee. We've had to adapt the ways that we've done recruitment in the past. It went from having too many applicants to just trying to get enough in the door to do a testing. Lack of community and employer support. I think agencies, specifically IACP, has put out studies recently speaking to how agencies have found this in surveys of their recruitment class and then those that have tested and what that meant to why they chose or did not choose to work for a certain agency. Compensation has always been a piece. I think we know that. We've discussed that. I think council has worked on that, but it remains one of those factors. And then fear. And this is both fear on the job and fear of just a litigious society. So that fear of getting into a profession that has some dangerous components to it, as well as a very litigious society. And what we're seeing currently in numerous officers being sued, this is not creating the best atmosphere to try to get somebody to want to get into this job. Next slide. So the goal of our partnership with Epic was specifically to drive people to a recruiting website. And ultimately, they managed this website. They created the video and the content, and that we did back in March. The next phase is where we're in now, and that's promoting that site and pushing people towards it. So ultimately, we can get them to apply. As time passes, we will start to see the analytics of who's coming to the page, where they are at geographically, and then ultimately where the most interest comes from. And that's where we will then take that data and drive all of our campaigning dollars to. And as you see, we'll forecast out where that future advertising dollars will be spent. And so that, this was included in that contract. And so most of this advertising that we're doing that's outside of us internally, Epic is doing with what we direct those dollars and where the analytics are showing we're best spending it. So in coordination, our internal social media coordinator has also used our web pages and our social media platforms to turn out as much of this media campaign as we can as well. So we are trying to hit this from all fronts, what we have internally and what Epic has done for us. And the goal is to get in front of as many qualified applicants as we can, because we're out there fighting against every other agency that's short. Maybe not as short as us, but they are trying to fight and claw and get those folks. And we have to be better than that agency or we won't get them. Next slide, please. So as you see here, it's just a quick snapshot of the Join Asheville PD page. And this is our Facebook, Twitter, and social media platforms that they manage for us. So Epic puts this content up. We approve all content that goes out, and then we then turn around and also share this on our pages. Next slide, please. If you have not had a chance to see the webpage, I encourage you to go look. They did an incredible job for us. They took what the internal staff and Chief Zach sought out as a vision of what he wanted to display as what our agency and what our city puts forth. And I think they did a good job of capturing that. So I'd encourage you to make sure you visit these. Here in a second, we'll have a chance to at least watch one of the clips. And as time permits, if you would like to watch more, we have them embedded here. But we just wanted you to be able to see ultimately what the product was if you haven't had a chance. Next slide. Earlier, we kind of just discussed those first 20-day metrics, and this is specifically what was given to us as a snapshot and how we will, from this point forward, be receiving analytics from Epic. So they ultimately run those websites and can see who is going where, who's clicking and where they're clicking from, and that gives us the opportunity to kind of know where best to focus our recruitment efforts. And so this was the discussed earlier where we have saw the reach that has been out and then the impressions that were made and then ultimately what we will then drive towards next. Next slide, please. And this is specifically to the YouTube ad that went out. One other thing that we learned here recently in some recent release studies is that targeting high school and college recruits is something to be considered again. And so we have tried to make sure that our campaign encompassed getting folks on board early and getting them engaged, even if they're currently in classes for criminal justice, that they see this as where they're best fit. And so that's where we have kind of tried to drive this very first campaign. And we're hoping to see what, after a full trial of that money spent, what it does for us in the next month. And so we will hopefully be able to report back on what it did or didn't do for us and where we're going next. Next slide, please. If you can play that one for us, this will be the very first video on the.
I've been with the PD 15. I got 2 years with county, so I've got 17 years in law enforcement altogether. The atmosphere here, the town, the people, great place to raise your kids. We just love it here, and it just makes you want to stay.
I come from a generation of law enforcement. I chose Asheville because it's a big city with a small town atmosphere. We get experience here that many other people in other agencies will never get to experience.
To me, there is no community policing like school resource officers. They don't look at me as a police officer. They look at me as Coach Loveland, their coach. And because I've built relationships with them outside of uniform, there's a lot of credibility that comes with that.
In the military, I was a police officer, so it was an easy transition coming from the military to the Asheville Police Department because I already had the basic training of it. We need all kinds of people within this career, and I think that this is something that women are good at and should come and be a part of.
We get multiple calls all the time. We're kind of stop and go all night, but that doesn't mean that I can't take the time to help the person achieve their answer. If they have questions, we always take our time answering those questions, making sure they completely understand how we're going to work their case to the end.
It felt like a way to protect other police officers as well as the community, doing something that was highly specialized with lots of training. We're purely there to help preserve lives. So it's a good feeling knowing that we're keeping people safe.
This is one department that definitely supports pushing the officers to take training. If you're looking to learn something new, this would be the place to do it.
Here, there's a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things. You could be on the bomb team, you could be a crisis negotiator, you could be on the SWAT team. So there are very different opportunities available to you for the things that interest you the most.
We, as police officers, are also just like regular people. We normally see them in uniform on their very worst day, so now they get to see me on a great day. We're just out there coaching them and leading them and mentoring them.
In the 10 years I've been on the squad, it's helped me develop critical thinking skills, lateral thinking skills, leadership abilities, and we're part of a very specific and unique community. Very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jenna. If staff would like, there are several other embedded videos that we can come back to, but if you would skip to slide 15 for me, please. Thank you. Our next steps with Epic is, as you could see there, and thank you, Jenna, for working through all those slides, is they created a number of videos for us that we really felt like captured not only the specialized units, but what we as an agency are. I think they did a really great job with some of the parameters we put on them and showing also what the city is. And we wanted to definitely use the fact that we're a draw. We know we're a draw on what we have. And agencies across the country and recent data have shown that individual locations that have what we have should have an easier time in recruiting. And so we want to use that to our advantage, and then we want to work off of what we have working for us as well. So we'll evaluate all that data that we have from them moving forward. We then take what that is and we direct that money towards the avenues that get the most attention. You know, Epic wasn't hired to hire people for us. They were hired to get us out there and to get people looking at us. And so from that point, we have to then bring them in as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And especially to speak to the generational gap, we have to make them feel like they're the number one candidate we're looking for. And so internally, we're working on that. And we're getting this data, sharing it amongst the staff so that everybody can be a part of the recruitment effort. This isn't just the staff you see here. It's not just our recruitment department. And more so, we really started to drive forth retention over recruitment. And we kind of had those inverse because we want to keep the people we have because they are our number one recruiters. If folks that are working here are excited about working here, they continue to want to work here, they will drive their friends and family to also join this agency. So we will continue to provide you updates. We will see updates to the website. You'll see social media updates monthly and then weekly. And then they continue to work with our internal social media coordinator to make sure that we're also putting those on our page. And then just as a reminder, the website that Epic has for us, they will maintain for the entirety of the contract. And what that means for us is that any changes we want to make, all the raw footage that we have, if we want to put out different videos halfway through the year, they will work with us and do that for us. Next slide. So just to speak again on some of our takeaways, we know that there are barriers and we're working towards those. We hope that you will work with us on the pieces that can help assist us in making this an easier transition and to get as many folks hired as we can. We will work through all of those pieces on social media to get this out to as many people as possible. And then we'll use that data to try to help direct us and kind of set a roadmap for where we go next. And with that, that ends the portion of Epic, if there are any questions.
I have a question about how we're covering the cost of the contract. Originally, there was a discussion about a one-time savings from returned surplus equipment from Axon contract, but last month we had some financial oversights with that contract. So I wanted to know if in any way that impacted the covering the next 2 years of their work.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I think ultimately the payment for Epic went out in stages from when they provided product. And so I think, and I would have to revert to Elise Lewis specifically on what line item to be able to give you that direct answer. But I did not believe that what you spoke about impeded us from being able to cover this portion of the contract.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Sandra, your hand's raised.
Yes, I just had a couple of questions. Basically, I was looking for your target market. I know we're trying to hire as many qualified candidates as possible, but I noticed that your target age between 17 and 30. I'm just wondering how come they kept between 17 and 30 and then maybe expand it to at least 40, 45. And the reason I say that is because just with any employment opportunities, I found it a lot of times the younger generation who basically did not know what they're quite want and looking for. A lot of times with job recruitment, I've noticed that a lot of recruitments on the younger age, the turnover is a lot more because they don't have the experience with just life and not knowing what they want to do. So the turnover with recruitment, as far as being able to retain them, is higher with the younger group. So I was just wondering how come they didn't think to maybe expand it to 45, where you get more of a mix with more mature, maybe sort of have a direction for their life. I think that to me would give us more of a pool of candidates, increase the pool candidates. I just feel that. I was wondering how come we didn't do that. Was there a reason to recruit the younger generation?
Yes, ma'am. And I think you're exactly right. And we understood that. And what you described was that generational barrier. That is definitely part of what we see in hiring a younger individual coming out and the retention, what will happen with them down the road. This specific campaign was kind of based on some nationwide data of where we're going to find the most current recruits. And you were also speaking to a lateral program. And what we also are trying to push and encourage is pulling in lateral officers. And to do that, we have to become the place somebody wants to work. And that is, you know, a seasoned officer works in Charlotte, let's say, and they are looking to move maybe. What drives them to move? And this campaign wasn't geared towards them, but we are pushing towards gaining those lateral transfers as well. We just have to become the agency and the city that they want to live and work in. And so part of that is a long-term campaign too, to pull in laterals, to make us more appealing, to increase all those pieces that we've discussed, from compensation to benefits package, overall what it means to work in this city and to be a police officer. I think you hit exactly on what that drives that campaign. This one in the current first YouTube platform was specifically to drive surrounding states and high school and colleges to try to engage and get as much attention to the police department and our recruiting effort, and then let that spread. Those seasoned officers that you're talking about, they're seeing this too. They see what we put out in the videos that are out, but that specific campaign was driven at that age group to grab as many potential candidates that are looking to get into this career right away.
Okay, so tell me something. So what, I'm just wondering, I understand that particular factor, but have you, I'm not talking really about even people that's actually been policemen before. Just as far as new hires, do you think 40 is too old for new hires in the police department? I'm just, because I just wanted to know, is that age is something that you usually try to go after? Is there a reason for that?
That specific age came from information we received in a nationwide polling of what current agencies are out seeking. That's what it was driven at. If we kept it too wide, I think what they were looking at is the content and who's actually clicking on all of these pages. Folks my age aren't engaged as much into all of those pieces and pages, and they know exactly, if we had much more time, I could give you all of what I've learned about what they do, and that's how long we have to capture them. How many seconds do we actually have of something they see to get them? And it's not many, it's just a few. And so that's different based on generation. And so I think my best answer is we really base that on the data that we were provided and where they've seen success work for them. And then we will reevaluate that come next month.
Okay.
Keep in mind,
one other question I just want to ask you. Now on slide 3, when you were talking about as far as community support was one of the areas, what could the community do basically to help? That you said that we were, you know, if you go back to slide 3, you'll see the.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. And you wanted that one? Go ahead. And I can answer that. And it came out of a recent study that I was actually able to listen to the lecture and speak to what it is that means. That can be very generic, but it's more specific when they talked about it. And it is ultimately when an agency went as far as saying that you support the police department, what does the community mean in that? Are they saying they support, or are they actually coming out and publicly saying they support? And that's on both in this study on the community and its city staff and council. And so in progressive cities that have denounced police departments, they have had a tougher time recruiting. And so they went into detail about what that meant for them and how that change has to happen. And where they saw successes is where a community, let's take as an example, initiated some project, something within the community itself, and invited the police department to be a part of it. They found greater success there with community buy-in because it wasn't the police driving it. And so the community was engaged, the police department were excited to be there. And so it gave a better understanding of support. It really showed what that meant for the police department not to be the lead, but to be an invited party. And I can tell you from the staff that's sitting here, we will show up to everything and anything we can that we're invited to. But what we've not found success is when we drive the programs. And I think now we're starting to see some nationwide data that's helping us drive that home, even for our community, that we will be there and we want to be a part of it, but it won't see as much success if we're the driver.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And I think Deborah's hand was raised to respond to your first question, Sandra, I think.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I want Brandon and the chief to kind of clarify that this is a phased process. And so we will get results. We will get an understanding of the impact that we're having within this particular age group and to this approach. But this is a both and. This is additive. It's not our only effort at recruitment. We think this issue nationally, not just in Asheville, it's in Charlotte, it's in Black Mountain, it's in whatever community there is that has a law enforcement entity. Recruitment is tough. And so we need to distinguish ourselves in a way that makes our community, not just the Asheville Police Department, but our community, because their employees for 8 to 12, 16, unfortunately now 17, 18 hours a day. And then they want to live in a community. So I think that we're trying to do this in a very holistic way, but in a very targeted and strategic way. And as Brandon said, the national information said, grab this group with this type of marketing and outreach, but then there will be other opportunities. And quite frankly, please don't understate what Brandon said also about retention. Our existing police officers, quite frankly, I feel very strongly will help us recruit more officers if they can positively advocate for their experience working in our community. So I thought I'll stop there, Vice Mayor. Hopefully, Sandra, that responds to your question. And if I said anything that was inaccurate, Brandon, Chief, or Chiefs, please.
No, not at all. What we have to remember, we are 20 days into the campaign. Okay, our recruiting effort is going to span years, and we are going to target specific groups with each individual campaign and sometimes in different manners. So you asked the question, is 40 too old to be a police officer, or are we interested in that demographic? Yes, we are. Okay, and that demographic will be reached perhaps in a different campaign or in a different manner to address that particular demographic. So this is, again, we are just 20 days into it. This is a quick snapshot of how we began, but it's in no way how we will finish. And that we will continue to find individuals across the board as to who would be a good fit for this profession and for this city. But we're not putting any restrictions in place. We're not trying to only identify a particular group. This is a very broad-based program, and it's going to touch on a number of different demographics as we move forward. This was just the beginning, if that makes sense.
It does. Kim? Kim, you're muted.
Thank you. While we have this up on slide 3, I am curious about the word litigious society. I think what our community desires is the built-in accountability that comes from living in community together, our kids going to school together, seeing each other at the grocery store. And so my question starts with this. One of the ways that council can support recruitment and retention of first responders, including our police, is through living wages based on the cost of housing. Given the high and rising cost of living in Asheville, not just housing, but additional costs like childcare, transportation. And our focus, we heard today, was on high school and college recruits who would rely on entry-level salaries while requiring a lot of training. I think council needs to understand the needs of local applicants and their families, because even the new recruits from out of town will become local residents. So my question is, when can we expect to see those detailed demographics, including the location of who the ads are reaching? And that data by percentage is usually very accessible. I know we're only 20 days in, so could we expect to see an update in November or December about who our ads are reaching?
Yeah, from the onset, ma'am, they were very open with when that data starts to pour in and when they feel they have a good snapshot to give us indication of where to go next. We asked for this early and kind of forced their hand to be able to give you an update. And so, yes, we will see what you've requested, and that specific data on where it is working, where it is not, what reach we've had, how far it's been. On the front end, we can only say those that we've received applications from, and if they've seen it from this website or it came from another location, and that's been a handful thus far. And so we believe and we agree with Epic that as time passes, we will ultimately get better data, and we will share that.
And so, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, I didn't raise my hand. I'm hoping that we can get something late December, early January. Chief, is that too soon?
No, I think by end of year, we would have a better idea. And again, data that's far more reliable than if we just go every 30 days. We know some campaigns are going to be more effective than others. And, there's an adjustment as we target. So, I think we do need to give it a chance. And, 3 months is a better snapshot than 20 days. As you saw, 364 people clicked on and showed an interest in APD in 20 days. There is no possible way we could go to job fairs or go out and put up hiring and get that much attention. So 364 in 20 days is pretty good. But we'll see how many more we reach. And I think 3 months is definitely a better snapshot for us to interpret and analyze data. So we could certainly do that.
Hey, Deborah. Ms. Rodney, you also asked about or made a comment about cost of living and so forth. What we will provide to you in our first quarter update will be presenting some information to Finance and Human Resources Committee just shortly, but also as part of the manager's report, we'll be giving you some information about changes and adjustments that have been made as it relates to pay and our effort to help support this recruitment effort to be a more competitive from a pay perspective. So you'll be getting that information later on at the council meeting tonight as part of the manager's report.
I'm thinking. Go, Kim. You're fine.
Yeah, just as following up on, since that was related to my question, I know in the last Public Safety Committee meeting, I asked if we could get a 6-month budget snapshot, and that the reason for that is tied to this. Right now, I think there are members of our community who are under the impression that because we have vacancies, that we have that same amount of a surplus in the budget. But once again, we know that overtime is expensive and our staff are working a lot of overtime. So that's why I asked for that 6-month snapshot to go along with the Finance Committee's recommendations or presentations that we'll see tonight at Council, because this group will need to see more of the details in order to engage the public, to use that as an education opportunity so folks have more of an understanding of what our available resources are.
Hey, Deborah. And we will have that, a 6-month report as part of our second quarter update to council. So that will come around January. This one will be the first quarter, so it will be the first 4 months. So we will have that information to you.
Any other questions? I just wanted to say concerning the timing of when we come back to follow up on analytics. I was thinking that, this part of the campaign is just similar to casting that net before more targeted recruitment goes out, a targeted recruitment campaign goes out. So I would be interested in coming back when those analytics are received before dollars are spent in a more direct and concerted effort. I think it'll be good information for the public and good information for this committee ahead of assigning those dollars. So I don't know if that's a 60-day, 90-day. I mean, only Epic and the social media coordinator will be able to determine that. But I'm just trying to make sure that we're not spreading the chief and his team too thin with bringing back information that might not be beneficial. So I guess we'll have conversations about when the information received will be gathered to set another targeted campaign or a targeted campaign. Kim.
In regards to bringing back more information before we do the targeted campaign, I support your ask. So if you're looking for enough members of this body to bring information back to public safety before the targeted ad campaign, you have to.
Okay. Chief Zach.
So just wanted to make sure we clarified, and I may not have been as clear as I wanted it to. I wanted to make sure that staff didn't think we were spending additional dollars. It is not. This is money already spent in the contract and already agreed upon with Epic. And so it's just the direction in which we tell them we want them to take the campaign based on the analytics we receive. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we weren't trying to spend additional. We're not asking for that. This is a part of that.
No, I think we're clear, but ahead of this conversation, when the representative from Epic came, we gave some feedback on diversity and different types of policing we would like to see. So I think coming back before dollars are assigned, not additional dollars, but dollars already within the contract, before those dollars are assigned to a more concerted effort, then just have that report back to this committee so that we'll be in the know and we can get feedback.
We will.
Deborah?
Go on.
Sorry.
I believe Chief Brandon and Deputy Chief Yelton, if I'm understanding the request is, could you all please bring back some of the analytics, the findings? We're trying to assess how successful the campaign has been at achieving what we think are mutually agreeable goals of bringing in diversity of people and thought and expertise and age and all of that. And then having a discussion about, and we think that we want to go in this direction with our next campaign. And so it is information. I don't think, Vice Mayor, you're asking for any more than that. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Well, the analytics will demonstrate how the dollars should be spent. And I just want to report back on that. So we're all on the same page about how it's spent and what groups are being targeted and why.
I think we understand.
Okay, any other comments?
Get that data, we'll provide it.
Okay, thank you. I think you all have another presentation on the integrity unit.
Thank you. Before I move on, I just would be remiss if I didn't add one piece that I think is important and vital to our recruitment effort is we have not reduced our standard. And I think that's important to the community. It's important to me because I live in the city of Asheville, and it's important because of who's going to be responding to my house in the city. And that's an officer that I bring on and recruit. And the standard can't be lowered. And we've seen nationwide where this has happened and it has been a failure. And we've seen where there's been successes in still being able to recruit people without having to reduce that standard. So the city of Asheville is maintaining its hiring standard for police officers is the same it's always had, so that we can get the qualified candidates, not just a candidate. And so I just wanted to make sure we put that out there. In moving forward, a quick update on the Integrity and Compliance Unit. The unit was created in September of 2021, and it was with the chief's vision of establishing some consistency in how we interpret, implement, and adhere to our policies, practices, training, and laws. And so that encompasses a whole lot. There was a lot said in that one sentence, but the time-consuming work of being able to perform all of those functions by a first-line supervisor was just too much. It took them away from their primary duties. It took them off the road where we as command staff need them to be. We need them actually out working with their staff, and as you've seen, younger staff, to pass on knowledge and generational experience. So we need that person, that sergeant, out on the road. A lot of what we were tasking them with was these functions, and so this unit was created to try to take that workload off. So the time constraints and various levels was getting too confusing with what we wanted. It was inconsistent. It wasn't efficient in how we went about it. And then trying to get a report out of all that we could make sense of wasn't helping anybody. It just seemed like busy work. So we needed to make this an actual function. And by getting this unit started, we were able to do this with an admin patrol sergeant. And we can now alleviate most of our road sergeants from this work. There are still some functions they hold in the field, but overall, it gets them back out in the neighborhood. It's not them at a desk in the office. We need more of them seen and felt and heard. And so the consistency and interpretation of the policies and those procedures and the training give officers a more clear understanding of what we expect from them. And then they know right away what their responsibilities are. And for most police officers, that's pretty easy. Tell me where to go and what to do, and I will do it. And so this develops confidence in them too. Their supervisor being out there with them also gives them somebody else to rely on. And so when they are more confident, they perform more professionally. And that's what we want. That's what our community is asking for. And it ultimately will lead to better trust building. You want to see and know and hear your officers. You want to know who works in your community. You don't want to actually see a different person every time you turn around because we didn't have the staffing to give you, what was your officer that you knew. So we want to build that. This unit helped us do that. But we're still, next slide, please. We're still working to try to perfect this. And most of it's going to come when we can address our staffing issues. We have found really quickly that we need another individual in this unit. One sergeant can't do all of what you'll see here shortly as all of his tasks. And then in addition to do what the chief has asked for out of this unit, and that's with your random body worn camera reviews. Are they being activated when they're supposed to? And then within that video that you watched off of a random, did they perform the way we'd want them to? And that goes to the next one. And their de-escalation training. Are we seeing them respond in the manner that we train them to? Is the public getting what they should get out of an officer each time? And that's something the chief has asked for. They have training that indicates how they respond in certain situations. And that's not always, they have to ad lib from time to time in their job. That's understandable. But did they follow and did they treat this individual the way they should have? This unit looks at that, but that's a lot of body cam footage, and that's a lot of in-car camera footage, and that's a lot of follow-up for one person. So, even with evidence, we also want to make sure that we're following that procedure. The documentation, was it done exactly the way it was supposed to? This individual is responsible for that, but it's just one individual. Next slide. So you can see, and I won't read through all of these, but these are all of the additional things that we tasked them with from all of these audits. And you'll see it looks like some of them are additional. They're not. They're specific to what this individual has been told by the chief he wants us to look into. From their body cam to their, the audits that are required, to traffic stop data that's required to correspond with the body cam, consent to search searches, as far as it's complying with the policy for evidence documentation, as well as TSRs. Racial profiling stop reports, are those being done, and is the video accompanying those, and have all of the policies we have in place to make sure that these things are happening, are they being followed? Because before, the policies were there and we said do this, and the sergeants had to do everything they could on the road to get it done in addition to their daily duties. Now we pulled some of that off of them, and we've heard the response and how good it was for them to get out on the road, but we're going to need more help. And so we see moving forward, when we can get staffing, that we're going to need to put somebody else in this position. Next slide, please. And this kind of speaks to that. We just have that one sergeant in there. You know, we understand that we can't take somebody from a road position and put them in here for this. So that one sergeant is doing the best he can. He works directly for me and he stays busy. When it's asked what he does, he's constantly in these surveys, the data, the random pieces that he gets, putting it out so that the sergeants actually can have an easier job at what they're doing. So we can't get to all of our intended goals of the unit. And the chief's been very clear with me that the moment we have staffing, we will get to all of those required goals. So we will increase the size of that unit so that we can better reach all of these requirements. And we really see this as an integral component of what we do moving forward. As we speak to the community better trusting us, this is some of that data. This is what we already do and is being tracked and it is available. And so I think this also not only helps the community, but it helps us internally because we will continue to work on internal struggles as well and make sure we're putting the right officer in the field for each community member. And with that, does anybody have any questions on our integrity and compliance unit?
I don't think there are any questions from the committee, but thank you all for your two presentations and your time. And we'll move on on our agenda. Next, we have the continuity of operations plan and emergency operations plan. And Division Chief Jeremy Knighton is going to do that presentation.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, council members. Come to you today to give you a brief update on where we are in a crucial first step to making our community more resilient and to making our response to them more appropriate and timely. Next slide, please. Some of the key takeaways from this that I'm going to go over are just kind of a reminder and a refresh on what the emergency operation plan is and what the continuity of operation plan is. Those are two plans that will reflect the operational nature of our city during all hazard incidents and events, how we engage our community and stakeholders in the planning process, and tying together our existing plans that we have in each of the individual departments with this foundational element of resiliency. Our emergency, kind of where we are in the process right now, we're looking at going through the evaluation, and I'll kind of get into that right now. We've had an overwhelming success in responses to vendors and to contractors that have reached out and want to assist us in this process. And then also, when I hit on a little bit of our evaluation process and the coordination that we're going through and the makeup of our team and kind of what these ongoing steps are. This is a lot of work and it's a heavy lift because of the overwhelming success and interest in helping us move forward. So I'm very happy and pleased to share with you that. Next slide, please. So just to kind of refresh, the focus of an EOP or an emergency operations plan is our emergency measures essential for when we're responding during these events. The COOP plan or continuity of operations plan kind of outlines the execution of the essential functions. Where we prioritize the delegation of authority, lines of succession. Many of these things come into play when we're looking at the various events that we're vulnerable to here in our area, and that many of the other studies and plans that we have told us that we are. But the biggest thing I want to highlight is both of these plans engage the whole community, not only in the planning process, but when we actually go to involving them in response and how can they help? How can we help? How can we come together, not only as responders and community members, but as leadership and employees, and even taking a look at where we are resilient, where we are the most resilient, and obviously where we're not. But also the inclusion of folks that might be non-traditional responders. We've had lots of success recently during COVID-19 and others about bringing folks to the table that can offer resources, time and funding to help us in response. And that collaboration has proved very successful. Next slide, please. So kind of where we are in the process right now, obviously we went out for RFPs. Those proposals were due on September 19th. We had very good success in our outreach. We had 15 proposals submitted from well-known and nationally respected companies that do this kind of work, that have assisted communities large and small. 13 of the proposals were found to be responsive after the initial first review. Obviously, this first step showed us, and in collaboration and close coordination with our teammates in finance and others, to make sure that the processes were followed and everyone that was going to actually compete for this was responsive. And so 13 of the 15 were responsive after that initial review. All proposals were in budget and timelines, each concluded around the June-July 2023 timeframe. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. To be honest with you, we were not expecting this much response. This type of work can often be tedious and time consuming, and for to have this much response, it's kind of a blissful, not misery, but it's definitely a heavy lift, because we're going to have to comb through each of these to hit the high points and make sure that they line up and we validate them against the needs of our community and the needs of the what we laid out before them in the scope of work. So that's kind of where we are now. And again, we're headed for that June-July 2023 timeframe. But obviously, as we reach complexities and things, this is very tentative. It could change, and we look forward to updating you more as that timeline ebbs and flows in the future. Next slide, please. So kind of just to hit on our evaluation process. Again, this is the first step. Those RFPs were due on September the 19th, and that's when the work started for us internally. We assembled a very diverse team from the fire department, our information technology services, equity inclusion, finance, and also emergency management from Buncombe County. It's super important that we include those kind of vertical stakeholders in this, because our continuity, our resilience, and a lot of our response depends on those close partners and that close coordination with our partners over in Buncombe County. So we have a really good team, and I'm very, very thankful for this team that has embarked on this heavy lift. I can't say how much that is. Each of those documents range from about 25 to 45 pages with immense detail on how they're gonna help us, guide us through this national best practice, and really an outside look on many of these internal processes that we want to continuously make better. So that's kind of the team. The process. So the process kicked off on October 9th. So the initial evaluation scorecards are due on October 31st. And in that scorecard, it's about a 55 points of how we are looking at these proposals based upon what we put in the scope of work. So once those scorecards come back from the team that's on the other side of the slide here, we're going to be looking to take the scores, how those scores relate, and then we're going to interview the top 3 candidates. Again, this is a very external look at a really internal process, and we want to make sure that not only the scores were in line, but we want to have definitely a relationship with these folks as they help us move forward in such a very, very important task as responding to our community and how we operate in those continuity timeframes. Next slide, please. So next steps and timeline, this is kind of where we've been and kind of where we're going. Obviously, August, I presented it the last time, or I believe Chief Bazinski presented it the last time about how the process went, the internal meetings, preparation for posting. We're looking at October to December of obviously getting, posting, evaluating, and awarding that contract. And then January, February, the on-site work begins. And I want to highlight that on-site work. Many of our staff have stepped up and are willing and ready to pitch into this process. And we are going to definitely be leaning on not only our staff, our leadership, but members of our community to help us walk through this process. So we're very excited. And then hopefully, everything goes the way it should. We're looking at that June 2023, July 2023 rough draft and deliverables. We've asked the contractor and the vendor to not only help us through these documents and these plans, but also we want to make this relevant for everyone. So we're going to have a couple of tabletop exercises that will involve, and I believe the Vice Mayor, you went through one of those tabletops in the same kind of format when we had the folks from the Naval Postgraduate School here and that with the county. So very, very similar to that in format, but we want to make sure that we're inclusive when we start exercising these plans. So it's not just a plan that's one-dimensional, it's three-dimensional, and we are able to operationalize that and manage expectations of our community members moving forward when we get these done. I would be happy to continue to provide updates to this process at the critical touch points. But I would say the next step is definitely getting this vendor awarded and then starting that process early 2023. Yeah. Pending any questions from the group, that's the end of my report.
I'm gonna assume that hand gesture was a go ahead. Okay. Thank you for your presentation. I did hear emergency operations as a key concern at the Neighborhood Advisory Committee meetings retreat last night. To maximize engagement and outreach around this, have there been requests to present at, say, the Sustainability Advisory Committee on Energy and the Environment or Neighborhood Advisory Committee, outside groups like Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods or the Legacy Neighborhoods at neighborhood meetings? When can we expect that there will be that kind of outreach plan?
Yeah, great question. As a part of this process, we're going to be working with and leaning on heavily our CAPE folks to come up with and produce that communication and engagement plan. So we're gonna using the folks that we know, obviously internal, as well as the vendor that is selected, and kind of sit down and come up with the best way. What are some other things that maybe we've not done before to engage that community, those different communities and parts of our community? But all of those things definitely will be on the table as we look to engage as many folks as possible and to help us manage those expectations. So yes, I know that we're already having conversations in different stakeholder groups to talk about this and to kind of put a placeholder. But I'll look for the first of the year for us really to hit the ground running once we have that communication engagement plan. And then we have a very strategic but targeted method for doing so.
Thank you. And when I hear that we're going to be using some tools to do outreach to folks who are neighborhoods, especially that maybe haven't participated or don't typically participate in the ways that we have done outreach in the past, are we going to be using some of our GARE tools as a member of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity? Because I know we have some specific vulnerability index scores around our climate justice initiative, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of doing that in a multitude of ways. We are very fortunate to have equity inclusion on board with us, not only with the initial scoring of the RFP, but they have committed as going to be a key member of the planning committee. Also, we're going to be looking at with many of the climate justice initiatives, as I've spoke about in the past, we have the sustainability staff and using a lot of the data that we already have, and also working with things like Land of the Sky and that Excel Adapt to where we can get to the block level and see some of that granular data to help us with that as also. So, and that's all going to be formulated into that communication engagement plan, and we look forward to bringing that back to you when that is complete and we're ready to go.
Thank you so much. And then you mentioned a scorecard and also that you received a lot of applications, which I think is a positive thing. So when can the scorecard rubric, like just the basic, even the blank scores and how they're being weighed, as well as the applications, be publicly accessible?
I would definitely have to defer to our finance team and the group around the whole process and the specific steps when that will be able to be released. I know that we're being very, very intentional about how we're getting this to folks and with non-disclosure agreements, because it is so competitive and it's a really good spot to be in. So I will definitely defer. I'm not the expert on that, and I'll ask our other teammates, and we can get back to you on that. But
okay, and I appreciate that. I also know that it's possible that the scorecard rubric, as a basic blank rubric, may be more accessible than the application. So perhaps that could come first.
Yeah, and the scope of work is available right now on our website. I think it was available on purchasing's website. And so all we did was take that scoring rubric. It's available now, the points and the point breakdowns. And so we took the scope of work, we kind of pulled the specific pieces out, and you can see how we weighted each, how we'll weight each vendor's response to that. And a lot of the pieces that were weighted the most heavily were not only the planning process, but that engagement of individuals with lived experience and pulling that out of those bids or those proposals is very critical. But the scope of work and the actual scoring matrix, those are already available, I think, on the city's purchasing website.
So I just pulled that up and I don't see it, but maybe because it's closed. So perhaps staff can give us a example of how we might point folks in a different direction.
Having difficulty, Vice Mayor, hearing you.
Okay, let me check the speaker queue. We have one person in the queue, caller ending in 5584. Your line is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. First off, I want to say that Asheville typically has champagne taste on a beer budget. We have the ability to fund road diets, all kinds of wants versus needs. Right now, our Asheville Police Department is down by 40%, and we have the ability to increase their wages and salaries and pay them more, which would be a fundamental way to support them and recruit them. America is glued together between teachers, nurses, and policemen. They are the fabric of our society, and we pay them never enough. And guess what? We have a shortage in all three of those categories. So how can we do better for our police? Well, if you want to recruit them, the city council can stand up and be vocally supportive of them. We can have our local news agencies accurately report encampment removals. It was completely falsely reported during the hurricane. Many of us know that. The police are directed by the city. There are social workers present, and our city doesn't even have a dashboard for available beds like other cities such as Greenville. LA, Portland, and many of our West Coast cities are failing. They have reversed and changed their ideas on sanctuary camping. We can't support sanctuary camping. It will make our city a bigger depot for a humanitarian crisis when other red states are shutting down and making it a crime to camp in their states. They will all come to Asheville. Please support the Asheville Police Department by giving them retention bonuses and increasing their salaries, and by vocally supporting them on council. The community is going to continue to show up and support the Asheville Police Department. Thank you.
Okay, that was our only caller. We still can't hear you. Do you want me to give you the phone and PIN?
Well, if that's it, everyone, the meeting is adjourned.